Thermarest, Nemo, Sea to Summit, Big Agnes, and Xped. These are probably brands that you've come across if searching for a sleeping pad. But there are some new kids on the block, and I've been testing 2 new sleeping pads from 2 different companies that have surprised me in a big way. Primarily by outperforming my expectations in 3 categories: price, warmth, and comfort. This first pad is made by REI, and it's REI's first sleeping pad. It's called the Ionosphere 5, and it costs $180 US for the size regular, which is less than a lot of other sleeping pads that cost over $200. This is the REI Helix sleeping pad. It costs only $160 for the size regular and goes on sale quite often for close to $100. Both pads continue the trend that we've seen over the last couple of years of pushing R values higher and higher. Several years ago, a good 3-season pad had an R value in the mid 3s, but these days we're seeing a lot of pads with R values in the mid 4s. The REI Ionosphere has a really solid R value at 4.8, and the Helix has an even higher R value at 4.9. Both pads use reflective insulation inside of them in order to reduce radiative heat loss, and that's a technology that we really only saw in Thermarest pads previously. Reflective insulation performs really well. It helps pads get a really good warmth to weight ratio and performs really well in real-world conditions. The Ionosphere also uses synthetic insulation in order to reduce convective heat loss. So they have a sheet of insulation that stretches from the bottom of the pad to the top of the pad, and that helps reduce air movement throughout the pad as you toss and turn on it. Convective heat loss is probably one of the biggest enemies to warmth in real-world conditions because it's tough to test through the R-value testing system. The Helix doesn't have any synthetic insulation inside of it, but I think REI did something with the structure of the sleeping pad in order to prevent convective heat loss. If you look at the dimples on the front here and then on the back, they don't align exactly. So I think REI has created 2 different cells, one on the top of the pad and then one on the bottom of the pad. And by having those 2 different cells, it helps reduce air movement throughout the pad and reduces convective heat loss. I've tested both pads in sub-freezing conditions on pretty cold ground and was toasty warm on both of them. They definitely live up to their R value. For comfort, baffling is one of the most important factors, and both pads avoid the least comfortable baffling system, which is horizontal baffles. The REI Ionosphere uses vertical baffles, which is a pretty comfortable baffling system. I don't have my arms fall asleep when I'm sleeping on pads with vertical baffles. It also has raised sides, which helps keep you a little bit centered. The REI Helix uses a quilted or dimpled baffling system, so you have these little raised bits and then lower bits throughout the pad. And I find that that kind of baffling system really helps alleviate pressure points. So if you're a side sleeper, you're not going to have as many pressure points on your shoulder or your hip, and it's the only baffling system that I've used where I've slept through the entire night. The REI Ionosphere has been the most comfortable vertical baffle sleeping pad that I've ever tested. I'm not sure why, it's just the way it is. I have the size regular here, and it sleeps a little bit small. Compared to other size regular sleeping pads that I've used, the Ionosphere just feels really tiny, and I'm definitely going to be having to get the size large in order to sleep as comfortable as possible. The REI Helix has been super comfortable. It's slowly becoming my go-to sleeping pad due to that high R value and warmth, as well as how comfortable I sleep well on this thing. The Sea to Summit Etherlite XT has previously been the most comfortable sleeping pad that I've ever slept on. It probably still is slightly more comfortable than the Helix, but the Etherlite XT is a really cold sleeping pad, and I can really only use it during warm summer conditions. I have the regular length, wide width for the Helix, and that's a perfect size. It's a good balance of weight, but then also providing a lot of surface area to toss and turn. I never feel like I'm running out of space with the Helix like I do with the Ionosphere. I'm really excited about both these pads. REI and REI are really pushing the competition when it comes to sleeping pads. The REI Helix you can pick up right now from REI's website. I'll have a link in the video description. The REI Ionosphere, it's going to be available later this spring, but should be available across the board at all the major retailers. If you're interested in another new sleeping pad for 2023, go check out this video right up here. I take a look at the Thermarest X-Lite NXT. It's Thermarest's new take on the X-Lite with a bunch of changes that I think are really beneficial to a lot of people.